So it looks like what they did is they had that area screened, but obviously outside of there was not. So if you were at that building, and now the question becomes is who had access to that area near that building?
Let's get to the lead we buried here, which is why we're talking. Obviously, what just happened, and everyone's still litigating this publicly. It's being litigated a lot harder, even privately, I'm sure. But Alessi, I sent you a video on text, actually, of AOC during the hearing with Kim Cheadle. Can you just pull up that vid on? It was a tweet. I just want to make sure we have that, because this is a good place to start. Because and pause it real quick because it's already started and we got to turn the volume on. But basically, AOC asked the question that we were all wondering about, which has to do with the perimeter and how this was done. Because obviously the shot came from between 400 and 450 feet away, which doesn't sound like a lot to a lot of other people, but I want to go through the process there. But let's play this real quick so we have it. Go ahead.
You established earlier that the building upon which the shooter operated from was outside of that established perimeter, correct, for the Butler, Pennsylvania event?
It was outside of our secure perimeter, yes.
Now, that building was, I believe, 500. How far away was that building from the president?
It was approximately 200 yards.
200 yards. Now, the individual used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question is, why does the Secret Service perimeter, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
There are a number of weapons out there with a number of ranges. Again, an advance was completed. The determination of the perimeter, I'm not going to speak to specifics, but there are a number of factors that are taken into account when we determine our perimeter. Some of it has to do with terrain, some of it has to do with buildings, some of it has to do with assets and resources that are available.
And so what I'm hearing is that a perimeter was not established outdoors in an outdoor venue that would prevent an AR-15, which is one of the most common weapons used in mass shootings, from being able to be within the range of Secret Service protection.
A perimeter was established, and even though there were buildings that were outside of that perimeter, it wasn't just that building. There were a number of buildings in the area, and there was overwatch that was created to help mitigate some of those buildings.
Okay, that's good right there, Leslie. So I talked to my friend, I talked to a lot of people after this, and from different walks of life around that had to do with protection and stuff. But one of my guys, Remy Adeleke, who was a Navy SEAL for 12 years, human guy, worked in the Middle East left and right. He's like, dude, we used to have, like, where he had to do security, we used to have events for or be in charge of protection of things that are far from a president. Could be even, you know, some smaller dignitary over there. And he said sometimes the perimeter would get up to 2,000 feet. Yeah. So when you see the edge of that building, some of the information there I think was a little off. The edge of that building, I believe, was around 350 feet. Let's be conservative and say it was 400, right? So feet, like not yards.
So you're thinking like 150 yards, I think is what I've
heard.
In 150, that, 170, something like that.
In that ballpark. So my question is, why is there not a standard perimeter for any outdoor venue that the Secret Service has? And what do you think, without going into what went wrong, we can litigate that in a minute, but what do you think the process there was to determine where they put the actual perimeter?
Okay, and so I'm just, once again, before I'm going to preface this one more time. I'm not speaking for the U.S. Secret Service. I'm here in my own time, and the only information I have is what's been stated publicly. I'm not involved in this in the sense of in anything regarding the investigation or what the official, and then there is an investigation going on by the FBI. All I can do is the information that we have publicly. I can give you my take on it from 23 years, like we talked about up to this point of doing this. So this is just my opinion. Some of this will be my conjecture. And I'm going to try to stay away from things that are more specific. Now, I will say, I've watched, obviously, I've watched all the hearings. I've been following this extremely closely, publicly, like everybody else. I just come at it from a different point of view, just because of my experience on the job. And the other thing that's sensitive to me is, like, I know some of the people involved in this. Some of the people that were on that shift, I know very well. And let me just say, before I get in, I'm not going to answer you, but
please,
the people who support Trump, the leadership on President Trump's detail, I know well. I've known some of these guys for decades. There's some. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass when I say they're some of the best Secret Service agents I've ever worked with in my fucking life. And their experience, I've talked about my experience, and it was brouhaha, my chest. I was like, great. These guys are better, and they're amazing, and very, very smart. Lots of experience, and we saw those guys and immediately react once that shot was fired. Yep. These are husbands and wives and fathers and mothers, and they jumped on there in a heartbeat, putting themselves between that weapon and trying to save the protectee, even if it meant their lives were going to be at high risk. Right. Because their vests aren't stopping that motherfucker. If they're taking more rounds, so they put themselves out there, and I thought how they reacted was amazing. Trump's detail is very well manned and very well run by some of the best agents I know. Okay. Now, talking about this, going back to your question, what I've seen is it looks like there's these outdoor rallies are hard. Like I said earlier, you have obviously the high ground issues. You have these open spaces, high speed ingress routes where it's like if somebody had a truck or something with bomb and just hauled ass. I mean, you have all these issues to mitigate. That said, like in this situation, and I think I saw the assistant director Rowe when he was testifying. If I'm recalling it correctly, he felt that building should have been within the secure perimeter. I believe that's correct. And he's right. I believe he's been out there, and he's obviously very experienced, and he's making that determination. I agree. Now, the question becomes, okay, how far out is the perimeter on? And she's right to an extent that depending on the site, it's there will be different perimeters. Now, this one should have been pushed out, no question. I'm not sure what other buildings that were in play, but clearly that was. You don't have to be a security expert. You could be a mailman to see that's a fucking huge problem that needs to be mitigated. And clearly it wasn't. And that's why this is an unquestionable failure. And we need to, as an agency, collectively fix this problem and improve and ensure this doesn't happen again, especially because the pace is very heavy. Now, in the situation there,
unless he has a map up over here. So this is where we'll just take a look at this real quick.
So the question also becomes, and here's what I found interesting when they were talking to, when they on Capitol Hill, when a lot of legislators were talking, were kind of interrogating our people, frankly, they were talking about how far you push it out, as if we have an infinite amount of resources, and that can be a problem too. So there will be times like if there was I don't know. Once again, I don't know what the plan was here. I don't know specifically but I've done sites like this where, like the assistant director said, that should have been part of, like if you had put that site out and included that, then nobody coming into that area, it could come in there unless you were magged. And obviously there's a different dynamic for that. So the crowd is obviously magged and screened. So it looks like what they did is they had that area screened, but obviously outside of there was not. So if you were at that building, and now the question becomes, and I don't know the answer to this, is who had access to that area near that building, for instance. So obviously, they had some unmagged people in that area, it looks like. I don't know I don't know the site dynamics or what the setup was, but obviously that became it appears, obviously, that's clearly a failure. Now, then the question is, how far do you push it out? If you had a set standard, if you said... every time, I don't know, just off the top of my head, let's say every time you have an outdoor rally, you have to secure a kilometer radius.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And you're talking about it's really not doable.
I think if we can look at this map again real quick, I think what's really getting people in though is that it seems like the difference between 400 feet and 600 feet is not infinite resources. And when you have a high ground building with a perfect fucking shot.
No, I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I totally agree with you. It should. This is inexcusable, and you can't excuse the inexcusable by definition. I don't know what the entire site. Now, the investigators now will have, and obviously everybody's being interviewed by the FBI that was involved in this, and the investigators will come to their conclusions. And I don't know what the setup was. It's clearly, and I agree with you. The fact that situation or that line of sight issue wasn't mitigated. You just can't come up with, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus on that. I know the people, and this is, and to this conspiracy people and shit like that. I know the people doing this. It's not a conspiracy. Unfortunately, it was a catastrophic mistake that, God rest his soul, Corey Comparatori, lost his life, and he was my age, had a family, and served his community. And 2 other men were gravely injured, sure. And we almost lost, President Trump. So there's no excusing this failure, and there's only one agency that's to blame, and that's the U.S. Secret Service.
I think you gave an amazing visual earlier in this conversation that is perfectly relevant here to say, because again, we saw the people on camera who jumped on him, but there's a lot of other people involved with this situation. And what you said earlier is that 11 guys can be on a football field and 10 guys can do their job perfectly. And if the 11th guy misses a block, we're fucked. Yeah. And that's, to be fair to the Secret Service, when I look at the people who did jump on him, that appears to be more the case here.
Yeah. No, and nobody is. And look, we're not asking for sympathy, but I know the people at the Pittsburgh field office who were heading up the advance. There's nobody. I know some of the people there. There's nobody, and I haven't talked to any of these folks, so this is not firsthand. But I put myself in their shoes really easily. As far as if I was in charge, something like this happened, I would be mortified, heartbroken, sick to my stomach, and I would never be able to. And so my heart, they're human beings, and I don't know where the ball was dropped here. I don't know what occurred or the old plan, but there's no question that this is not representative of what the Secret Service typically does, and I don't know where the mistake was. And I hope, it's my desire that, as terrible as this incident was, that something good comes from it, meaning that we improve, that that the FBI or their investigation and whatever internal investigations we have, we figure out what the fuck is going on and how this could happen. In protection, the biggest, and I'm not saying it was complacency, but the biggest enemy is complacency. And I told this when I was a shift leader on vice president. This is really about life, but also about, especially in protection, if you become complacent, which is easy to do because I used to tell my guys before we start a shift, I go, our job is to wait for lightning to strike. It's like every day we're fucking coming in here.
Paint dry to lightning.
Yes, we're getting our asses kicked. We're away from our families. We're tired, but we're waiting for lightning to strike. And we have to be prepared for that. That's why we get paid well. That's what the American public expects from us. And that's what our protectees deserve. So be ready. And I'm not saying it was a complacency here. I don't know how this happened, but that's the biggest enemy. And maybe, that hopefully, and I'm being optimistic about this, is if there is complacency, or if people are getting complacent, if they're tired, that something like this shakes this fucking place really hard, and we get our shit together, and nobody's to blame in the agency. The whole agency's to blame. I'm to blame. Every fucking agent, every uniformed division officer. We're a family, and we're all in this together. And the only way we're going to fix it is that everybody individually takes it upon themselves to train harder, stay in shape, and stay focused, and avoid complacency, and then try to figure out how we can do this better. And if that means going outside the box, it means passing, for somebody like me who's been doing it a long time, passing along my knowledge to younger agents, whatever it fucking takes. Our motto is worthy of trust and confidence. Well, guess what? No one's confident in our confidence. No one's confident in us right now. Mm-hmm. And because we came out messaging why so shitty on this, no one trusts us. So we got to win that back. And to do that, and we got to do that for the American people who pay our salaries and expect us to do that. The reason why it's a big story is because they're like, you're the Secret Service. How the fuck did you let this happen? And I don't have the answer for that. But anyway, that's just my little tirade. But
I appreciate that.
And also, this job it's like a vocation. It's more than a job. It's like, because so much of your life is taken up by it. And so much sacrifice is done to do this. And I'm not like tooting my horn or saying that, but I just know, I've had a wife for 23 years who's dealt with this stuff and she understands it. But it's not just another job. And so we have to look at it that way and make sure we fix this problem because, this is completely unacceptable. And anyway, going back to your question, there's not really a set circumstance where we say, okay, this is exactly every time we're doing it this way. Here's what the book says. We're going this far out or that far out. If that in this situation, let's just say they had somebody on that rooftop or they had it mitigated in some way or they had a way to prevent people from getting up there. I don't know the whole dynamic of the site, but you would obviously in a better situation. But what, like the acting director said, you really need to focus on and bring that into the bubble to take it completely out of play, where you keep people from coming in there.
Yes.
The problem I think you have sometimes is, and this is not an excuse, is you do have a finite amount of resources. Like sometimes I see the senators and some of the people grilling our folks. I'm like, they're like, well, can't you do this? Can't you do that?
I understand that, but they had the whole Secret Service inside the building, which was like kind of a punchline joke because it's you literally put the fucking service in the building.
Yeah.
You couldn't put someone on top. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.